Welcome inside the Celtics front office at 100 Causeway Street. We got another episode of View from the Rafters coming right at you today. Before we get into this with Cedric Maxwell and Sean Grande, who have called, 2,000-something games together?
I don't know who's doing the math on that. Was it you? Were you the one adding them up? Were you going 1681, 1682, 16? I mean, who's doing it?
I can tell you who didn't add it up.
I can tell you two people who didn't add it up.
I lost count already. So what are we at? 2,000,
I didn't. I wasn't keeping count in the first place.
All right.
I just show up to work.
All right. Well, before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone, give us a rate, review, and subscribe. We appreciate it. Audio episodes dropping every Tuesday on your favorite podcast platform, and the video version dropping every Wednesday on our YouTube channel. So, as I said today, we've got the pair who's called more games together than any pairing in Celtics history. Am I right on that?
That's what we're told. In fact,
it's insane.
when they told me the number thing was kind of silly, and Max and I were already joking about it.
You can't say that when you're a numbers guy.
But the thing is, I'm not a numbers guy.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. It's like I do my research and share it.
That?
Yeah, because I'm a play-by-play guy.
Just cut right now.
This is the funniest thing in the world to me. That like in doing play-by-play, you have to prepare. It's called preparation.
Yes.
You prepare for the games. I share my prep because now we have social media, so I share the prep with fans, and then people who don't listen to the games or don't watch the games. That apparently I've done 2,000 radio games with Max and another God knows how many hundreds of games on TV in the NBA and this and that. Suddenly I'm a numbers guy instead of a play-by-play guy because I share my
No, you're a play-by-play guy who has the numbers.
I have them. They're in the. I've 20-something years, 2,000 games worth of folders and books.
A bunch of numbers. And he'll give you numbers throughout the game. He'll give you the percentages of Celtics. They have a 98% chance, but they lost. Or this team did.
That's when you use them.
And I sit down, I'm just like, oh, really? So I've just found out that Sean does have numbers, and I think that is, to me, I'm fascinated by his numbers. More so, I think I told Sean this. I said, I'm more fascinated about Sean Grande, the broadcaster, when we lose. Sean Grande maintains energy throughout a call. It could be the call for the other team is like, and he'll say something like, and LeBron James, oh my God, what a play. And he finished it going towards the rim. And it's a winning play. I'm on the other side going, oh, man, LeBron James.
Damn.
Yeah, and I admire him for that. He keeps a certain amount of energy, which I think is great. And I don't have that energy for a losing.
For the other team.
Yeah, for the losing.
Are you saying
I don't have it.
You didn't have that in Game 7 in 2010 in Los Angeles when the Lakers were about to win the championship? You saying you didn't?
I didn't have the energy. My energy was going down and down until our engineer was sitting beside me telling me, all of a sudden, Max, because I was the one supposedly going out to receive the trophy. Ooh. And they told me I had to go in the locker room
the ball.
and get the trophy. And I was like, oh, man, this is going to be great. Celtics up by, 14, 15, whatever they
14,
were going
into
that quarter. And my engineer, Doug Lane, is sitting there saying, okay, this is what you have to do when you go in. I got a wireless mic on you. And I'm looking at the score going.
Just going down and down.
Boom, and it gets down to like 6. And he's still talking to me about this. I said, you shut your mouth right now. And to see that eventually, you see what Ron Artest does and win the game.
Why are we talking about this?
Well,
this is supposed to be a happy, positive episode.
I'm going to do it for you because this is what I do. Because that moment prepared him for 13 years later, standing next to Lisa Salters in Miami with the Eastern Conference trophy. And so everything comes full circle eventually.
Not really.
I'm trying to make it a good story.
No, it can't be a good story. We always do real stories. It's like my podcast. We say, keeping on the 100. That's what we're going to keep on the 100.
It would have been better doing the finals
presentation. And Lisa Salters was a good get to get down there and do it. I had to run through the crowd because the game wasn't over because we kept missing all these shots. Sean had a great call. He's prepared. And Mark takes a 3 and this and Marcus gets another and then finally, and now I have to get down to the crowd to get down there to see the Lisa Salters and
you're high up in Miami.
And this guy is busting me through the crowd because he's the guy who has to take me. So as I get down to the bottom and finally get through the crowd, And I remember sitting there saying there, I was like, what am I going to say? Because they, give you a few words to say. And she has a microphone, and she's like, well, Cedric Maxwell, Finals MVP, you're receiving this trophy. And still today, people said I said some things were not correct. I said, girl, it is great being on top. And some people took offense of that line. I said, I was talking about the game. So, even then, Sean Grande has this line, which I love. He always says, no good deed goes unpunished. So I bust through this crowd to do all this and get that to the microphone. All of a sudden, I get backlash because of something that supposedly I said or didn't say.
Speaking of no good deed goes unpunished, with Grande and Max, you always get 100, right? You always keep it at 100.
Oh, that's
but as
a
both
fact.
of us found out in real life, with your wife, if you keep it 100, that's how you end up with 50-50.
It happens.
That's tough.
Or
That's
if that.
tough.
Yeah.
happens.
Okay, let's get back to how this started, because we're talking about this is 22 seasons, right? If my math serves, this is the 22nd season of you guys.
I guess I'm the numbers guy.
I know
right?
he's.
So,
I know.
I remember
he
it was
knows this.
2001.
He's acting like he does.
Sean has told me it's my 26th year.
No, he's 28, dude.
Is it 28 now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I got to get
See?
back on
Here's the thing
numbers.
about-
See, I got to
Well,
get
that's
back
an easy
on.
one.
Look, I got to get you on right now with my consultant. I know I can retire.
the rate is going
yeah,
up.
I can retire sooner than. Well, what happened was I had first broadcast partner. I had Spencer Ross. I had Spencer for a couple of years, and then they wanted to make a change. They got Howard David, and Howard David came in, and I had done a game with Sean.
Was this the test that we were talking about?
No.
Okay.
No.
There's more to the story.
Yeah,
That's
he
kinda
came.
interesting.
He came in. Howard has something to do, or something happened, and they brought Sean in, and I, he and I did the broadcast, and we had a good broadcast. And I didn't know if I was going to see Sean again. I said, "Good luck." And the next thing I know, he was gone, to Minnesota. And then I think once Howard was let go, they were trying to find, and then they came to me and said, "Well, we got Sean Grande." I said, "Oh, I work with Sean already." He said, "Guy said, well, why don't you call him up? Tell him to come on." I said, "Well, give me his number," and I called him and talked. We talked about him coming back, and he was like, "Yeah," and came back, and that's how. And I'll let Sean finish the rest.
Well, that phone call is what first made me change my mind about leaving Minnesota, which I was not going to do. I was doing TV in Minnesota. I was 20-something years old. It seemed like a job I was going to be in for a long time. But here's something. You want something that has never been said on the air before, that I've never talked about publicly?
Yes, I do.
When the change was made that Max was just referring to Howard David in 1997, 6 months earlier, that job had been promised to me. At 25 years old, I was going to join Max in 1997 to become the radio voice of the Celtics. And then a funny thing happened. Rick Pitino arrived. And suddenly the profile changed. And suddenly this was going to be a glamour franchise under Rick Pitino, and they didn't want a 25-year-old kid.
How did that go?
Yeah, that's kind of the point, Hal. It's funny. And as you like to say about Marty Glickman, he is gone. I am here, and he is not. But at 25 years old, that was for about 4 or 5 months. That was the plan. That I
Well,
was
who knows? Rick might be back.
Who knows? He's working his way back, right? He's in St. John's. He's getting closer.
He was overseas. Next thing he was in.
He's getting closer.
Step
Now
by
New
step.
York.
moving fast, moving
Now in the Big
closer.
East.
Yeah.
But in any case, and then when that got reneged from me, obviously I was not happy, and I was going to take the first job that came, and a year later, Minnesota TV job came, and I went and did that. Before that, in that 97-98 season, before I went to Minnesota, that was the night that Howard David, who was doing Monday Night Football and the Celtics, he got snowed in. And he didn't get snowed in Miami, but he couldn't get back to Boston because there was snow in Boston. Flight wasn't going to get here. And they walked into my little booth that I did the updates. And Max and I, our first on-air together was actually on Glenn Ordway's show in the late 90s, because Max was one of the rotating co-hosts that we would have come in with Glenn Ordway. And I did my little character, my little anti-establishment Generation X character. So that was the first time I worked with Max. So I'm in my booth. They came in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They said, "Get over to the Garden. You're doing the game tonight." And about an hour later, the aforementioned Rick Pitino, I'm like, Jeff Twist marches me into the office, and there I am face-to-face doing an interview with Rick Pitino. And Celtics played that night and won. And Max and I it was December 23rd. It was Christmas. And
He doesn't know numbers, though.
I didn't have any
That's
numbers.
what I'm thinking.
You know what? I get it. I see where you're getting confused.
No. He can repeat things to me, which to me is amazing. When he says
It's memory.
He'll say 2000. I know when that happened. 2008.
Yep.
Or it happened.
Photograph. I say it all the time. Photographic
It happened
memory.
2008, and I was like, oh yeah, they get. And he always gets on me for saying the other day. I'll say the other day in a heartbeat.
It's like
the other
15
day
years
ago.
It might be 2 years ago.
Could be yesterday.
Could be yesterday. I don't know. I always
happened
say
the
the
other
other day. So he does that.
Well, that's not, again, those aren't numbers. That's a memory. And yeah, I remember I have a bizarre thing that has aided me in my career, in that I know that in the 2003-2004 season, when the Celtics lost that lead to Brooklyn earlier this year, I remembered the game against Phoenix that they had lost with Marbury and Stoudemire, and I remembered that we couldn't fly out the next day because of a snowstorm, and they won back-to-back games at Utah, at Denver that night, and then we went to Salt Lake the next night. The Celtics won again. I remember all that. Where are my car keys? No idea. But I have all this useless information of institutional memory, which I realize now they call it that because you're going to end up in an institution because you can't forget all of this.
You have a great memory, and numbers just happen to fall into that.
If you say so.
All right, so getting back to those first couple games that you guys had, it was kind of like a test run, and
yeah, and I
not,
filled
not
in
necessarily a test, but
when
a
I went to
fill-in.
Minnesota, I filled in. They called me when I was doing it was called on the phone. They called Press Row. This is how old school this is. Can you get down to Sacramento, because Howard David couldn't do a game in Sacramento, and I met Max down there. So we had done a couple of games together, but I'm doing TV in Minnesota. So funny to me, and people are like, "Oh, you're doing TV this year? Let's go. Oh, you're good at TV." I'm like, I was kind of doing it 25 years ago, but when Max called me, I thought not just the games we had done, but his style. I thought this could be a thing. This could be a long-running thing that fits together. And I remember vividly, we had a long preseason road trip. Max will tell you about the statistician that we had in Little Rock, Arkansas, that I picked out, another life lesson I learned. Yeah, you will, the hard way.
Always go with beauty, okay?
What does Chris Rock say? the most powerful thing in the world. Yeah, that's probably another story for another time. But I remember this long road trip where all of a sudden, there was
hey,
music.
can you get me to these stats? She likes stats. What
we had.
What do you
we were
want?
allowed to
Max knows exactly what Sean's about to
He
talk
knows
about.
that story.
I
Yeah,
don't remember
we-
that. Hey, we got these stats.
We got
You
to
know,
have a statistician
She was
on the
like-
road in those days. They
Yeah.
gave you money, like you
What
could
is-
give money
Yep.
to a statistician. And I had come from doing college football on ABC, where they would have these sort of nonsense jobs that they would pick out, shall we say, students that went to that university, maybe to sit in the truck and
Tread
provide
lightly.
enjoyable- Yeah,
Tread
exactly.
lightly
Anyway,
here.
this is the environment I came up with. So they offered me 3 different people. These are 3 different people that could do stats for you that
Yep.
night. And I made a choice probably based not so much on who might the best statistician be, but maybe some other intangible qualities. And as it turns out, I don't think she could have spelled cat if you spotted her the C and the A.
And
adding
didn't
2
know
plus
what the
2
stats were that you
so
were
that
looking
was a
for.
bit of a struggle and a bit of a life lesson that I think we all learn as younger.
But this is what
it's
happens
funny.
when you're
Max
in your
remembers
20s.
that. He doesn't remember the Amari Stoudemire
I
game.
couldn't
Remembers that.
tell you. Look, I can't tell you when it was. I can't tell you the date. I can just tell
October
you.
But you remember
2001.
it happening.
I
Little
remember
Rock,
it
Arkansas.
happening. That's all I can tell you happened. That was it.
What were you thinking? I know we just heard what Sean was thinking during those first couple games, that like this could work, us being next to each other. What were you thinking?
We had a good relationship, and and what he was doing and his style. Because as an analyst on the other side, you are pretty much. I always say you are the accent. You're the salt and pepper for what the other guy's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what Sean does is he has a way of telling you a story, and then what I do is I add the ketchup. I add the mustard, I add the pickles, and all those things. He puts the main meat and potatoes out there, and that's what I do. I follow up with that, and that is what makes us. I don't try to get in his lane, and nor does he try to get in my lane, and trying to tell stories like that.
Is that true?
I have more. I
You
have
just
more
made
stories.
Sean just made a face.
because I think the face is that I think it's become one lane.
Okay.
I have. He has stories. I have stories which might accent a certain thing that might have happened, and Sean will tell you what happened, and I can tell you a story that might have been with Tommy, Could have been with Robert Parrish. Could have been with Larry Bird. And I think that our listeners a lot of times like to have that connection. If he tells a story, I might tell you something about Paul Pierce when Paul Pierce first got here. And those guys that I knew at that time, like Jason Tatum, I will always have my Jason Tatum story. Jason Tatum didn't really know who I was, but Jason Tatum saw 30 for 30. And so that day he comes.
I remember this.
He's out getting ready to shoot around, and I'm standing there. He goes, cornbread. I said, what's wrong with you, man? He said, man, I saw that 30 for 30 2 times. Damn, you were bad. And just a few more choice words, but those stories will stay with me. But that's been my connection with the players that we have now and the players that we've had in the past, and my connection with, Kevin Garnett. And Sean and I saw some stuff on the planes which just have been just surreal when you think
that we can't talk about.
No, you can actually. Well, you're keeping on the 100, ain't you?
Hell yeah.
You're keeping on the 100. We can talk about it.
This is behind the scenes with the Boston Celtics. That's part of the name of this podcast. So let's go.
Yeah.
If you want to drop something.
Part of, you're talking about my memory, whatever. Part of my memory now is that I have a lot of his memory in my memory. So I know when there's a time to tell
That's kind of sick.
Time to tell a story. Well, listen, let's face it, this is the longest relationship either one of us has ever had. So you, after years of hearing the stories and telling the stories, you know what fits. And that's why we can, as I like to say, you guys, you finish as each other's, and I'm like, sandwiches? No, but you get the point that it just becomes a natural, we don't need to have a 4-hour production meeting to go on the air. And
good luck with that.
Exactly. We're not going to have a 4-hour production
wants to do
meeting.
that for every game.
I know. I don't think we've had 4 hours worth of production meetings in 22 years if you were to add them all up.
What about 4 minutes?
I think that it just there's
the
best
broadcasts are people who naturally get together and understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not contrived, because you can tell people who have studied, and I learned this from over the years as I've gone through broadcasting, that I could get all the notes I want. But if those notes don't fit what he's talking about, it's going to be awkward for me to get those notes into a certain area. And you can't. You want to use those notes. You studied and you did this, and this guy shoots a certain percent. You might not be able to use that.
Yeah.
So that's why Tommy Heinsohn said, let the story tell itself. All you're doing.
What do you say about the game notes?
You don't need them.
Those are for the other guys.
Yeah, my Tommy Heinsohn.
Probably true.
Let's make sure we get
That's where all the numbers lie.
This is an
imitation
imitation
of Tommy Heinsohn.
Yes,
that once got Max on the front page of the Boston Herald.
Yeah,
God.
absolutely.
How long did it take for you each to understand each other on air? Did it happen immediately? Did it happen a couple years in?
I think it happened immediately.
Really?
That's the reason I refer to that first road trip and what might have been in
Sounds
Little
like
Rock,
magic.
Arkansas. But I think it was casting. People say this guy's a great actor, this woman's a great actor, and I'm not demeaning the acting profession, but I think that casting doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. This was a casting decision, and it just worked out to where we, on the surface, are opposite in a lot of ways, but we fit together. We have, as I always, the first couple of years we were together, you had the older guy from North Carolina who listened to James Taylor, and you had the younger white guy who listened to Jay-Z, right? And so we have such different backgrounds, but it fit together immediately. And let's face it, any broadcast team that works, any show that works inside the NBA, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you have people who love each other, who may just batter the living hell out of each other while they're on the air, because that's part of the game. But
it's just chemistry.
It doesn't.
I think that's what
it just fits.
It's chemistry that sometimes you just can't pick. I mean, it's like playing with Larry. There was a chemistry there that I had when I first played with Larry. And I look at Jason Tatum right now, and I look at Brown, and they have a great chemistry together. But they had to forge it.
Yep.
And they talked about it enough. I came in, I was the leading scorer before Larry got here. And Larry Bird comes in the first day of practice. I'm looking like, come on, this is still my show. Got to be still my show. After that day, I remember going to the first. This was not my prejudice side. walked to the first black person I could see after that practice and said, you know what? That white guy can play down there. And that was, but it taught me a lesson about getting roles. But it gives you an opportunity, and this is why I would say to Tatum or to Brown. I'd say to Brown more than Tatum, in the fact that you're going to get your opportunities, that you can highlight your talent. And that would be evident to me being the Finals MVP when you had Larry Bird on the court, you had Kevin McHale there, you had Robert Parrish, you had all these, Nate Archibald, but these were all Hall of Famers, top 75 of all time. But still, I got an opportunity to be an MVP in the finals because of the opportunity that was presented itself to me.
We're talking about chemistry, finding roles, all that stuff, and that you guys have kind of just fallen into it with one another since the start, which begs the question, how challenging has it been this season when you don't have him all the time, when he doesn't have you all the time, and you guys kind of have to figure it out with other people on air? And Sean, you're with Brian Scalabrine, and Max here with John Wallach. Like, how much of a challenge has that been with you guys not having each other for half the games this season?
I'm curious your answer. I've got a good answer.
No, I'll go and let you. I'll let you go first, Sean.
I feel that, first of all, as we're talking now, it's 2023 at the end of this year. I think this has been the best year. This has been my personal favorite year of the 22 years I've been here because it's been a new energy. We brought a different feel to the TV side. My number one role has been able to spell Mike so that Mike doesn't have to do 70 freaking games, and hopefully his run can go on and on and on. If he doesn't have to do 70 games a year, that would be the perfect scenario. And then I think it is added. I think Max and I have had as good a year as we have ever had because now we're doing 60 games instead of 85 or 90. And as I have tried to explain to my wife, the lesson is going outside and being with somebody else for a little while and coming back, it can be even better. Now, she hasn't
How
bought
does she
it.
respond to that?
Not well.
Dana, something tells me Dana doesn't like that
Not well
idea.
yet, but I figure if I just keep hammering it, where I think, well, the lesson to me of 2023 is that it's what I've really felt all along, which is that Randy and Max, Mike, Scal, Abby, Eddie, we're all interchangeable parts.
Yeah, exactly.
We can all pretty much do everything. We could all slide over. Like, okay, this is the year I've done TV. Max had several years where he was filling in regularly on TV, and I was with different people, that would fill in on the radio side, and the Max can do that. I loved it when he was over there because it put a spotlight on him. It put a spotlight on the Grande and Max brand. Oh, if you like, it's the same thing now. If you like Grande, oh, he does this every night. You don't understand. People come up to us and they say they always have an excuse. As some crazy thing happened. That's why they had to listen. Oh, the power went out in my house. I had to listen to you guys. I got stuck in the car. I had to listen to you guys. I'm like, we do this every night. We're here every single night for your entertainment. You can join us at any time. But I think that this year has just punctuated what I thought, which is that it's one big team that's interchangeable. And listen, Max could go on TV tomorrow. Obviously, I can do TV, but it's nice that we've all gotten to share different things. I think it's been a great year for us because it's been a little juicier when we're together because we're doing 60 games now and not 90.
What about you, Max?
I tell you what, I like the energy of it. And Sean said sometimes the excuse, but sometimes people just like radio. Yeah. Now that's been a staple here in Boston for a long time. There are people who will still tell me today, I will turn the radio, I would turn the TV, the sound down to hear how the radio goes. And obviously it's two different mediums that you're in. Had a guy the other day, Sean talks about excuses. Well, this guy didn't have excuse. He says, well, we're in Walpole. We're in the prison down there. And, man, we love you guys every night. I said because it's our bedtime and turn the TV off and we listen to you. So I think it's obviously a different audience. I love the guy we had one time, and I was talking about something, and I told Sean, and Sean was telling me about a guy who listened to us all the time in Australia. And so you think like he's listening at whatever hour it is in the morning to us. And we would talk to him, and he would text Sean back. And Sean is also, the other thing about him was he was on top of all the tweeting, texting, all that stuff, once it got started. Sean also informed me about his opinion about when they were Celtics about to make a trade for Kevin Garnett, which I did not like, and Tommy Heinsohn did not like, and we were both like, "You're gonna get Al Jefferson, you're gonna get rid of him." We're going, "Oh no, whoa!" And Tommy Heinsohn said, I'll quit right now if they get rid of Al Jefferson."
They trade out.
I'll quit. And Sean said to me, he said, "You don't know. You do not know how good he is." I'm like, "Well, that dude's an older guy, man. It can't be that." And he makes the first exhibition game. He makes this wraparound pass, throwing it to Paul Pierce around his back, and I went, "Well, Al, it was nice to take your parting gift because you're out of here," and fell in love with Kevin Garnett, the big ticket, and to bring a championship, and to talk to him, and even somewhat do some mentoring to him. I think that you and I were on, and I think we were doing a podcast, and you were talking to him about Kevin and Paul were on together. And I remember you looking at me, and I said, "Hey, Kevin, when are you going to bring Ray back?" And you went to me like,
freaked out.
"Whoa, wait a minute."
This was
hold on.
This was a few years ago, a couple years ago.
No,
it was before that time seemed to be ready.
It was ready. It was being prepped, and it was ready. And in talking to him, it was really good. And then to finally see those guys together. That hug to me when they retired Kevin's number, and Ray walked out on the floor, that might be one of the most lasting moments I think I'll have with the Celtics, maybe ever. It was Paul Pierce screwed it up when he went out there and gave the third hug. I didn't want that, but I could have just sat there and watched those two guys embrace. And I'm not hey, whatever this thing about men embracing, but I was still fascinated about the energy, the power, Kevin Garnett bringing him up on stage. Ray, come on up here, boy. You next. That was one of the best moments. And I felt like I had a hand in that by telling Kevin, "You're the godfather, man. You got to bring Ray back." He lied, "No, man, I don't want." I said, "No, you got to do that." And I think in his mind, maybe it wasn't just me, but I'm sure a lot of people have said the same thing to him.
The hold he has over people and the magnitude of him as a player and a person, I don't think people appreciate. And there was pushback when Kevin Garnett first got here, because you can't say anything about Larry or any of the other Celtics. Same thing's happening with Jason Tatum right now, because Jason Tatum every night is breaking some Larry Bird record. And people are Larry didn't shoot the threes, and he didn't. And John Havlicek played 47 minutes a game. So, he was going to put it. So everyone just pushes back. But then when it comes to Jason Tatum night, 20 years from now, everyone will be well, Deuce isn't as good as JT. As JT was great in the play, and that's sort of the nature of it. But man, Kevin Garnett and I was I've never seen Ray Allen and Brian Scalabrine, two guys that don't get nervous about anything, and they were both nervous. That was, even now, the hold he has on people is something.
That was more than a dap. That was like a hug that really meant something. There was just so much more than you could have imagined with that embrace.
It shook the building
It did.
to its foundation.
Yep.
I mean, I think the Celtics lost that night, right?
To Dallas?
Yeah.
They lost that night.
We don't do well on jersey retirement
I don't
nights.
think that I don't remember. I just remember the energy once he stepped out on the floor, and I was just happy that they did it. I think Larry did it. Larry's was a whole nother way when they just had a whole day for Larry. They just came in. It wasn't even a game, and they came in and they sat everybody down, and we all were here, and this championship team and that championship team. It was such a cool moment, and I was happy that they had Kevin Garnett for at least after the game, where everybody could give him the love. Paul Pierce, same thing, because I had mine. Mine was like, "Okay, here's your jersey going up. All right, you're out of here. Drive safely."
You know who was waiting to get on the court to start the second half and shoot layups?
Kevin Garnett.
Oh,
Kevin
right.
Garnett was the first
circle.
person that came up to me after my jersey was retired and said, "Dude, man." He said, and it was so, and I felt like so special that he took his time to do that, because he was a star in this league at that time, and to acknowledge me like that, man, was the coolest thing from a person who was of the opposition.
This conversation, Mark, this is Mike and Tommy, Grande and Max. This is institutional memory, because if you haven't been here, the significance of Kevin Garnett being there at Max's retirement, Kevin Garnett eventually coming here, the bond with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, watching that break apart, the many years of trying to get everybody back together. And before you know it, people are coming up to you going, hey, I used to listen to you guys when I was in high school. I used to listen to you guys when and then you realize, okay, because listen, we're all older than we think we are. But you realize the body of work, it matters to me in sports. I've done a lot of national stuff, and it's great, and it's prestigious. But being the announcer for a team and telling a team story and then being able to do it for multiple years and being able to do it for one of the most storied franchises, there is a responsibility that comes with that to me is what is so important, that it's a shared experience, that when people turn on a game, whether they're turning on TV or radio or whatever, and they hear one of us or both of us together or whatever it is, that matters.
I got to ask you, though, why wasn't it ready, that Kevin Garnett conversation and Ray at that time when
He wasn't
I asked
keeping it
him?
100.
Well, sometimes within the walls of where you're working,
The organization.
you gotta follow some direction. And at that time, it just didn't feel organizationally that we were there yet.
I just jumped out in the middle
And
of
you
it.
just jumped
That's
out.
what he does.
And I was like, oh, dear God. Oh, dear. We're never getting KG again. No, but it worked out. And you know, in hindsight, I'm glad that you did that, because that might have been one of the first real nudges. And it was it wasn't like public, but it was in front of people who were on the call.
Yes.
I think it might have helped.
It did. And I say that only because, and I wasn't trying to splash mountain. But it was just at that time, to me, you had Kevin in a situation where he had to respond and had to respond in time. And it wasn't one he said, well, he got a chance to what? Oh man, I'm not sure. I don't want to. No. Or you are that dude right there. You're the godfather, and you're going to bring this thing back together. And when it happened, it was, like I said, I was ecstatic, but I remember the look on your face more than anything else once I asked him.
We've never actually talked about this before, but I was like, oh no. That's funny that you noticed. I'm sure everyone else did too.
Took the life right out of you. But whoa, no,
This is both the beauty and the danger of being Grande and Max, which is that
you never know where
we
it's
tend
going.
to talk about things when, listen, everything happened at the start of this year and there was a coaching change. I thought to go on the air and say, hey, Joe Mazzulla just called a timeout without acknowledging what had just happened and what we'd all been through. I think that there's sort of the advantage of being not in this building 24/7, that you got to be able to, you're connected to the audience. And we felt we owed the audience a conversation. So we recorded a 10-minute thing and we put it online and we said our piece, because we always have, no matter what it is that's affecting the team or affecting the NBA. And we just went through, the pandemic situation and Black Lives Matter, and you just cannot. We all have to share these experiences
couldn't be blind.
together.
You couldn't be blind to that. And I think that we understood what the organization was with Ime and what happened, but for you just to turn the page without acknowledging would not have been respectful to your listener or to your viewer.
I think that makes total sense.
Without just saying something about it. And I think that we on that radio side get a little bit more liberty to talk about it than Mike would or Scal would, because it's a different medium where we get a chance to talk. Where I was telling Sean, they got 1,000 commercials, so very seldom they get a chance to talk about anything. And the Toyota Rita today is and this and that and the gameplay. And whereas we have a little bit more time,
that's Sean's favorite
talk
part
about stuff. Yeah,
The TV side is like, this 3 in the Air is brought to you by.
Listen, we're running out of time. We got to wrap here, but I'd be remiss not to ask Sean 30 seconds to describe to all of our listeners Max's multitasking abilities during a broadcast.
It's extraordinary. I've never seen anyone be able to learn so much more about the world outside of basketball while a basketball game is going on than Max. I've learned more things about the animal kingdom and just different. He has a life outside the NBA, outside of basketball. And I'm lucky enough, I get all immersed in all the numbers, right, and the preparation. So to be able to look over during Max during the second quarter of a game, instead of being able to try to pronounce the starting center for the San Antonio Spurs, watching some YouTube video about a snake eating a pig or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a better person for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you happen to know? That's what I tell Sean, did you happen to know over in Africa that who kills the most people over there? I say hippos. He's like lions. I'm like, no, hippos kill more people than anything else over in Africa.
And
he's like, really?
Here's where that paid off. One of our first years together, we're playing the Jazz. And at the end of the Stockton Malone.
I don't know where this is going. How this is paid off.
I'll tell you why. That's what I do. I didn't get here by accident. You think Mike's the only one going to the Hall of Fame? So Stockton and Malone are still playing for Utah, right? And at the end, Max is trying to come up with some analogy about that, and he's got all these Wild Kingdom stuff, and he goes, let's just hope that, that's John Stockton and Karl Malone now, they're just not the same. They're kind of like the old lions, and what'd you say? They send them out to the
hyenas.
Send them out. Outcast to the where they get eaten by the hyenas. And I just paused for a second. I said, we can only hope a similar fate does not await Karl Malone and John Stockton.
Yeah, it will be.
It was perfect. I wish that I was listening that day. That's perfect. No, sometimes I'm 2 or 3 rows behind you guys, and I'm just watching what Max is doing, and I'm like, this is unbelievable what he's able to accomplish during this game. He's winning game after game in solitaire, or he's learning about the animal kingdom. The multitasking ability is top notch.
Along with eating.
Along with eating. Every now and then a little bit of food shows up.
Sean has asked me before, I had something I drank. He goes, did you just burp? I'm like, yeah, I did. That's a real broadcast.
I tell you, that's keeping it real.
All right. Well, that's a perfect mic drop for the end of this. No, congratulations to you guys. We gotta get you out of here so you can go and call your 2000-something game
you
together.
Tell me. I'll just go to work.
I'll tell you when I get down there. But no, we appreciate the time. Congrats to the career that you guys have built together on the radio, and we can't wait to hear many more of them. So appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Got it.